So here we have a red ball just bouncing around the screen. It's okay, it's pretty neat, pretty nice for this module, but it's kind of boring. Now we could turn this ball into a car if we wanted, but even when we drew our car last time, the car wasn't changing, right? The car was bouncing around the screen, but it looks kind of fake, right? So what we're going to work on today is we're going to draw something else instead so that it looks like it's bouncing around inside the screen. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to draw some triangles. And as the triangle hits an edge and bounces off the edge, it's going to point in the direction that it's heading. So let's get started. First things first, I just opened up Desmos.com and I graphed a circle and I plotted some points. So because I'm giving my object x speed and y speed, that means that it's going to be bouncing around in kind of a rectangular pattern, right? It's always going to be going on an angle. It's never going to be going perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. What are our four options? Well, it can be going up this way, it can be going up this way, or it could be going down this way, or it could be going down that way. So if we were going up and to the left, if I pick these 3 points and draw a triangle, it looks like an arrow that's pointing up and to the left. And now technically I could even draw it with the origin there as well, so my arrow would look something like this. Maybe we'll do that today. We'll try that out. I hadn't thought of that. So this is our up and to the left arrow. And so you can see if this is x comma y at the origin, then our arrow is pointing from xy, it's going to go to x plus 10 and y, and then it's going to go to x minus 7 and y plus 7, and then it's going to go to just x and y minus 10, and then back to xy. Now, one thing that's a little bit tricky with this, remember that with y, going down is adding to y. So instead of this one actually being y plus 7, this is going to be y minus 7. So let's just try drawing this first arrow and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to draw a polygon. So go pygame.draw.polygon. I'm going to draw it on the window and I'm going to just make it blue. And then now we need our point list. So x comma y is the first coordinate. That's the inside center part of our arrow. And then we said next would be x plus 10 and y. So that is the outside part right here. This is x plus 10, so 10 to the right of x. And then y, we're not any higher than our normal y part. So this is x comma y. And the next point will be x minus 7, y minus 7 as well. So we'll go x minus 7, y minus 7. And that's this point right here. And then to get down here, this will just be x, because it's straight up and down from our x point, x comma y plus 10, x comma y plus 10. And then that will finish itself back up to here on its own. So that's the end of our point list. It's got those 4 points. And what width do we want to give this? Well, I'm going to give it a width of 0, just so that it's all filled in. And let's go ahead and run it. So you can see there's an arrow right there, and it's pointing up and to the left. It looks pretty nice, I think. So I'm going to get rid of that red circle for now. We'll just hide it. Now, if you ever want to get rid of something without actually deleting the code, just comment it out so that it won't run. And so you can see we've got this arrow bouncing around, but it's always pointing up and to the left. I don't want that. So there's our arrow that's pointing up and to the left. Let's come up with the other 3 arrows. So pygame.draw a polygon, window, blue. Now what's our point list? They all have x comma y, right? And then what's next? So we have our x comma y, and then I'll go down here next. So this is x and then y plus 10. And then up over to here, and we have our x plus 7, y minus 7. And then back over to here, we've got our x minus 10 and y. And there's our 4 points. So we started here, we went down, up, over, and back here. And again, I'm going to fill it in. And there's our second polygon. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this polygon because the other two are going to be almost the same, right? And I'm going to make little comments here. I want to say that this one is up and to the left, which means this one should be up and to the right. And so this one can be down and to the left, down and to the right. So I'll go ahead and put those points in, and then we'll meet back here. Alright, welcome back. So here we've got our 4 arrows, and if we run this, all 4 of them are going to be drawn at the same time, and it looks like a nice little star, I guess. But we don't want that. We only want a certain arrow to be drawn as it's coming around the screen, depending on which direction it's headed in. So what we can do, we already have this bouncing stuff right here, but we can say, depending on which direction we're heading in, draw this picture instead. So down here in our drawing code, we can say if our x speed is bigger than 0, so in other words, if we're headed to the right and our y speed is bigger than 0, so if we're headed to the right and we're headed down as well. So if we headed to the right and headed down, we want to go and draw our down and to the right arrow. So what do we want to do? We want to draw down and to the right. So you can paste that right there. And what's next? Well, our x speed could be greater than 0, and our y speed could be less than 0. So in other words, we're headed to the right, and we're headed up. So up and to the right is what we want to draw. And it's this one right here. Paste that there. And what's next? If our x speed is less than 0 and our y speed is greater than 0, then that means we're headed to the left and we're headed down. So down and to the left. And now there should only be one other option, right? So I should be able to just put else. So if it's not any of these 3 cases, then we're going to draw our polygon, which means we're going up and to the left. So let's go ahead and run that. And you can see as we're heading the sides, oh, we've got an error. So x speed is not defined. It's just a little typo. We have x speed right here. Let's run it again. There's 1 bounce, there's 2 bounces. And it looks like, as we're bouncing off the wall, our arrow is pointing in the direction that we're heading in. So that's just quite a bit neater. Now, it's bouncing a little bit before it gets to the wall, right? So there's a couple things we could do about that. First thing we could do is we could just add a nice little border so it looks like the arrow is bouncing off the border. Or if you want to go right to the edge, you can change this value right here. Now, the furthest that our arrow ever gets away sideways from the center is 7, right? Because we've got these 4 are the points of our arrows. So since it's going 7, then we need to change these 20s into 7s so that it says it's going to bounce when it gets within 7 of a border. Let's go ahead and run that. And that looks a lot more like it's bouncing off the edge. And that's it for this lesson.